Graham Harlow sat in the back of his black Bentley, staring at the dating app on his phone like it was a bomb about to go off. "I can't believe I'm doing this," he muttered under his breath, tugging at the collar of his custom-tailored shirt. His driver, Marvin, glanced in the rearview mirror. "You say that every time you try something normal. This isn't normal. It's insane." Graham shut off the screen and shoved the phone into his coat pocket. "I'm a millionaire pretending to be average. How is that not insane?" Marvin chuckled. "You said you wanted to meet someone who didn't care about your money." Graham looked out the window at the rainy Manhattan streets. "What I said was, I'm tired of women who see the penthouse and not the person." So, when he'd created his profile, he left out the details. No mentions of his ownership of the Harlow Group. No photos of yachts or champagne-covered galas. Just his first name, a blurry photo in a hoodie, and a job title that said consultant. He didn't expect anything to come of it. Until she showed up. Lena Morgan. Her photo was the first thing that made him pause. She wasn't posing in some filtered selfie or trying too hard. She was sitting on a park bench, laughing so hard her eyes crinkled. It was unfiltered, raw, and real. He'd met her for coffee a week later, and then again for brunch, and again after that. Now, nearly a month in, he couldn't stop thinking about her. She didn't know who he was, and that was exactly why he was falling for her. Tonight, he was meeting her again, this time at a low-key Italian place in Brooklyn she'd picked. He'd offered to send a car, but she'd insisted on taking the subway. "I'm not fragile, Graham," she'd said with a grin that had tugged something deep in his chest. "I know how to survive a New York commute." He was already seated when she walked in, her dark curls piled on top of her head, a soft sweater clinging to her waist, jeans tucked into worn boots. She was the opposite of the women he usually dated. And yet, he couldn't take his eyes off her. "Hey," Lena said, sliding into the booth across from him. "You beat me here. I was hoping to make you wait this time." He laughed. "I told you I'm early for everything. Comes with being a consultant." She squinted playfully. "Still don't know what that means. Are you like a secret agent or just someone who tells companies what color their logos should be?" "Somewhere between that," he said, dodging the question like always. She didn't push. She never did. Dinner was warm and loud, the tiny restaurant buzzing with conversation and clinking glasses. They split a massive plate of pasta and drank cheap red wine from mismatched glasses. Graham watched her laugh, talk about her students. She was an art teacher at a public elementary school and described the chaos of her classroom like it was the greatest blessing in the world. "Why art?" he asked, resting his chin on his hand. She shrugged. "Because I was the kid who couldn't sit still. Drawing was how I survived. I figured maybe I could help a few other little chaos magnets survive too." His chest tightened. She was the realest person he'd ever met. She reached for a breaststick and narrowed her eyes at him. "You're staring." "Yeah," he said quietly. "I am." She froze, breadstick halfway to her mouth. "You okay?" I like being around you, Lena." A slow smile spread across her face. "I like being around you too." He walked her to the subway after dinner, the cold air wrapping around them as they stood by the entrance. She looked up at him, her cheeks pink from the wind. "You sure you don't want to Uber home?" he asked. "I'm good," she said. "Subway's faster anyway." He hesitated. "Can I see you again tomorrow?" She blinked. "Tomorrow? You're not going to pretend to be busy for 3 days like a normal guy." "I'm not a normal guy," he said before he could stop himself. She tilted her head. "No, you're not." He kissed her then, right there on the corner of Smith and 7th. People rushing past, taxis honking, Brooklyn never slowing. But for him, time stopped. When he pulled back, she looked stunned. "Well, okay," she breathed, eyes wide. "I'll call you in the morning," he said, stepping back. She nodded, biting her lip. "Okay." He watched her disappear down the subway steps, his heart pounding like he'd just done something dangerous. Because he had. He was falling. Fast. And she still had no idea who he really was. The next day, he showed up at her workplace with coffee and a bouquet of sunflowers. "You brought flowers to a public school?" Lena laughed as she met him outside. You're brave. He handed them over. They're for your classroom. Her eyes softened as she took them. That's really sweet. I wanted to see you, even if it's just for 5 minutes. She glanced over her shoulder. I have 15. They sat on a bench near the playground, holding coffee cups and watching the kids run wild. You ever think about having kids? She asked suddenly. He blinked. Wow, that's a jump. Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. She looked away. I was engaged once. Years ago. He didn't want a future. I did. He nodded slowly. I do want a future. Eventually. She smiled softly. Good to know. He looked down at his coffee. Lena, there's something I need to tell you. She turned to him, brows raised. But before he could speak, a child came running across the playground, tripped, and started screaming. Lena jumped up instantly. I gotta go. That's one of my tornadoes. He stood too. Can I pick you up for dinner tonight? Like, real dinner. Somewhere nice. She stared at him. Nice like. Chili's or nice like. Heels and a dress. Heels and a dress. She narrowed her eyes. Are you trying to impress me? Is it working? She grinned. Pick me up at 7. Graham pulled out all the stops. He sent a town car to pick her up, had a reservation at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the skyline, and ordered a bottle of vintage wine before she even arrived. When Lena stepped out of the car, wearing a deep red dress and her hair down in soft waves, his mouth literally dropped open. You clean up well, she teased, taking his arm. You look incredible. They dined under fairy lights and stars, soft music playing in the background. For a while, it felt like a dream. He didn't want to ruin it with truths. But as they danced on the rooftop after dinner, her cheek resting against his chest, he knew the dream couldn't last forever. She had to know. He just didn't know how to tell her that the man she thought was a regular guy actually owned the building they were standing on. And 10 more like it. Lena had never been good at dressing up, but as she stepped off the elevator onto the marble floor of the glass tower, she felt like she'd stepped into a different world. The hostess greeted her warmly and led her to the private rooftop terrace where Graham was already waiting, hands tucked into the pockets of his tailored coat, skyline glowing behind him like a painting come alive. You found it, he said, his voice quieter than usual, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to be this happy. You weren't kidding about nice, she replied, glancing around at the flickering lanterns and the soft white tablecloths that rippled in the breeze. This place looks like a magazine cover. He offered his hand. Come see the view. They walked to the edge where the city stretched out in every direction, the lights of Manhattan glittering like stars below. Lena leaned on the railing. How do you even get a table here? I thought this place required reservations months in advance. I know someone, he said too casually. She turned toward him. You always know someone. You ever notice that? He hesitated. Yeah, I guess I do. She opened her mouth to say something else, but he cut her off by pulling her gently toward the table where dinner was already being served. Lobster risotto, roasted vegetables arranged like artwork, and a bottle of wine with a label she didn't recognize but knew she couldn't afford. She didn't question it. Not yet. So, she said between bites, I've been thinking about your mystery job. Still trying to guess? I asked my friend who works in consulting. She said no one in that industry gets off at 4 to bring someone coffee. So either you're unemployed and charming or you're hiding something. He laughed, but his grip around the wine glass tightened ever so slightly. Maybe I'm just flexible. With your schedule or the truth. His eyes lifted to hers, suddenly serious. You want the truth? I want to know if I'm spending my time with someone real. He leaned back, eyes scanning the lights twinkling across the Hudson before returning to her. You are, but I haven't told you everything. Not because I don't want to. I haven't figured out how yet. Lena didn't press. Not then. But her laughter dimmed for the rest of the night. When the check came, not that she saw it, he motioned for them to leave. As they waited for the elevator, she caught her reflection in the glass doors. Her dress, her heels, her hair carefully styled, it wasn't her. Not really. And standing next to Graham, who looked carved out of some elite club she'd never be invited to, she felt like a tourist in his world. "Do you ever wonder if we're too different?" she asked without turning. "I do," he answered. "But the thought of not seeing you tomorrow feels worse than the risk." His voice was quiet. Honest. It undid her more than any compliment could have. Downstairs, the car was waiting. He opened the door for her, but she paused. "I'll take the train," she said. "Lena." His hand hovered at her waist. "Not because I'm upset. I just need the air." He didn't fight it. He let her go. The next afternoon, she walked into her classroom and found a square white box on her desk. No note, just a black ribbon tied around it. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a hand-bound sketchbook made of Italian leather. The paper was thick, textured, the kind you didn't find in school supply aisles. She flipped through it slowly, then found a card tucked in the back cover. It wasn't signed. Just 4 words, written in sharp, confident handwriting. "For what you create." She stared at it for a long time before closing the sketchbook and pressing it to her chest. That evening, she didn't wait for him to call. She showed up outside the building where they'd had dinner the night before. She didn't know why, only that her instincts had pulled her there. The doorman gave her a curious look. "May I help you?" "I'm looking for Graham Harlow," she said, heart thudding in her chest. The man blinked. "Mr. Harlow?" "Yes." He hesitated, then pointed to a black car idling across the street. "He's in there." She turned, and sure enough, Graham was seated inside, staring down at his phone, unaware she was watching him. She walked straight across the street and knocked on the window. Graham looked up, startled. Then he opened the door. "Lena? What are you doing here?" She slid inside beside him. "You gave me $1,000 sketchbook. You opened it. You didn't sign it. I figured you'd know." She stared at him. "I don't care about the gifts, Graham. I care about why you're hiding." He looked at her for a long moment before nodding to the driver. "Take us home." "Home?" she asked. "My place. It's time." The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Lena stepped out into a space bigger than her entire apartment building's floor combined. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a grand piano, shelves filled with books and art pieces she recognized from museums. The kitchen gleamed with marble and metal. Everything was immaculate, deliberate, expensive. Her throat went dry. "So," she said slowly, turning to him, "this isn't a friend's place." "No," he said. "This is mine." She turned in a slow circle. "You live here?" "Yes." "You're not a consultant?" "No." She faced him again, arms crossed. "Then what are you?" He took a deep breath. "My name is Graham Harlow. I own a private investment firm. Harlow Group." She blinked. "As in Harlow Tower?" "Harlow Media. And a few others." She stepped back, breath catching. "You lied to me. I left things out. I never lied about how I felt." She stared at him, eyes blazing. "Do you know how humiliating it is to feel like I've been dating a mirage? I wanted you to see me. Not the money. Not the name. Just me." She shook her head. "But you don't trust me enough to let me in." "I do now." "Too late," she said, voice cracking. She turned and walked back into the elevator. This time he didn't stop her. And for the first time in years, Graham Harlow didn't know if he could fix what had just broken. Graham hadn't been to his office in 2 days. His assistant, Jenna, had left him 6 voicemails and a stream of increasingly urgent calendar notifications, but none of it mattered. Not when Lena walked out of his life with that hollow look in her eyes. He sat behind his desk now, the city spread out beneath him, untouched coffee cooling at his elbow. The enormous glass windows reflected the ache in his expression. He'd built his entire life around control, controlling deals, outcomes, people. But this? He couldn't fix this with a wire transfer or a boardroom apology. Jenna knocked once before stepping in. "Mr. Harlow, I know you said no calls. But there's someone you should see. I don't have time for she's not from the office, Jenna said, her tone cautious. She says her name is Angela Morgan. Graham stood so fast his chair rolled back behind him. Send her in. Now. The woman who entered shared Lena's eyes, but they were older, wearier. Her coat was damp from the rain and her hands trembled slightly from the cold. Ms. Morgan, Graham said, motioning for her to sit. Is Lena all right? Angela hesitated before taking the chair across from him. She's not hurt. But she's not all right either. He sat down slowly, pulse thrumming in his ears. I swear to you I never meant to deceive her. She told me. Angela interrupted, her voice calm but firm. I'm not here to judge you. I came because I've never seen my sister this undone. Sister, Graham repeated, surprised. I raised her, Angela said. Our parents passed when she was 13. I was 23. She's always been strong. But when she falls for someone, it's all in. Graham leaned forward, elbows on the desk. I need to see her. I need to explain everything. Angela shook her head. She won't see you. She's convinced you only wanted the thrill of pretending to be ordinary. That's not true. I believe you. That's why I came. But if you want her to believe it too, you'll have to prove it without the money, without the suits, without the skyline. Graham's jaw tightened. She deserves better than the persona I gave her. I know that now. Angela stood. Then show her. He watched her go, the door closing behind her with a soft click. He stared out at the city again, but this time he wasn't looking at the buildings. He was thinking about a small classroom filled with paper scraps and mismatched chairs. About a woman who taught children how to find color in chaos. By morning, he had a plan. Lena walked into her classroom early, hoping for a few moments of peace before the kids arrived. Instead, she found a large canvas propped against the wall and a note taped to her desk. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was unmistakable. She looked at the canvas. It was blank except for a single phrase written across the bottom in charcoal. Let's create something together. Her fingers hovered over it. She hadn't picked up a brush since the night she left his apartment. Her creativity had vanished the moment her trust did. She dropped the note into the drawer and turned away. Later that afternoon, she left school and took the long way home. Crossing through the park, she noticed something strange near the fountain, an open art station. Easels, paints, brushes all set up under a canopy. A sign read, "Free art. No questions. Just expression." She paused. Children were painting side by side with adults, laughter echoing through the trees. She stepped closer, drawn to the smell of acrylics and turpentine. A man handed her a brush without a word. She took it. She didn't know how long she painted, but when she stepped back, she realized she wasn't alone. Graham stood a few feet away, wearing jeans and a rain jacket, paint on his hands, a canvas in front of him. He didn't speak. Neither did she. Instead, she looked at what he'd painted. A messy, abstract skyline, layered in deep reds and stormy blues. In the corner, a tiny figure on a subway platform, waiting. She blinked. You painted me? I painted what I missed, he said quietly. She set her brush down. You're just going to show up in a park and hope I forget everything? No, he stepped forward, voice low. I came to show you I see you. Without the penthouse. Without the illusion. You built a life on walls, Graham. How do I know you won't shut me out the next time it's inconvenient to tell the truth? I didn't build walls to keep people out. I built them because no one ever tried to stay. He looked at her, raw and exposed. Until you. Her breath caught. I bought this art station permit for the month, he added. Every Saturday. Not to win you back. To create something real. Whether you're here or not. She stared at him, trying to read between the lines, to spot the performance. But he looked tired. Human. Hopeful. I don't know if I can trust you, she admitted. Then don't, he said. Come paint. That's all I'm asking. She turned toward the easel again. The canvas was still wet. She picked up the brush. Over the next few Saturdays, she returned. Sometimes she painted. Sometimes she sat and watched. Graham never pushed, never asked questions. He just showed up, dressed down and paint-stained, laughing with strangers and children, becoming part of something he didn't control. He stopped sending flowers. Stopped calling. He let her come to him. And slowly, inch by inch, the distance between them shrank. One afternoon, as the last easel was being packed away, Lena lingered by the fountain. Graham joined her, brushing paint from his fingers. "You're not who I thought you were," she said. "I know. You're better." He looked down at her, eyes steady. "You make me want to be." She took a long breath. "That night on the rooftop," she said, "I was terrified, not because of who you were, because of who I was." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "I thought I'd be the girl from the wrong world. That you'd eventually realize I didn't belong in yours." He shook his head. "Lena, you're the only thing that ever felt like it belonged." The sound of wind through the trees filled the silence between them. Finally, she stepped closer, her hand brushing his. "I'm not ready to say yes to everything," she said. "You don't have to," he replied. "But I'm willing to try," she added. He reached for her hand and held it gently. "Then let's start there." Rain tapped lightly on the gallery windows as Lena stood near the back wall. Arms folded, eyes moving from canvas to canvas. The space had opened just that morning, modest, bright, with exposed brick and a warm scent of varnish and fresh paint. It was tucked into a quiet corner of Soho, not far from where she used to sketch on weekends before life got busy and love got complicated. Every piece on the wall was painted by local artist students, teachers, street painters. Graham had rented the space under the name The Platform, a nod to the place where their lives had first collided and almost unraveled. He hadn't told her about the opening. She'd found out through one of her students who had submitted a piece. When she asked who was funding the show, the coordinator simply said, "Anonymous donation." Someone who wanted the art to speak louder than the name behind it. She knew exactly who it was. She stepped closer to a piece near the window. A swirling blend of graphite and gold leaf. It showed a single subway car floating through a sea of stars. It was signed with only a date 3 weeks ago, the same day she'd first picked up a brush again. "Do you like it?" Graham's voice came from behind her, soft and steady. She didn't turn around right away. "I do. It's honest." He moved to stand next to her, hands in his coat pockets. The rain behind him made the space feel like a cocoon. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I didn't come for you," she replied. "I came to see what happens when someone who usually hides behind walls tries to build something open." He gave a quiet laugh, not defensive, just tired. "That's fair." She glanced sideways at him. "You're different. I'm trying to be. No suits. No driver waiting outside. Just you." "I sold the penthouse." Her brow lifted. "What?" "I still own the building. But I moved out. I bought a brownstone near the river. Smaller. Simpler." She blinked, stunned. "Why?" "Because I didn't like who I was up there," he said. "I walked through that place every day and didn't recognize the man in the mirrors. He had everything except peace." Her voice dropped. "And do you have it now?" "I'm trying to earn it. I'm learning how to live in a space where money doesn't fix the cracks, where apologies are made with time, not gifts." She went quiet again, studying the painting in front of her. He turned toward her. "I didn't fall in love with you because you didn't know who I was. I didn't even fall in love because you challenged me. I fell because you saw through everything even when I didn't want you to." Lena's breath caught, but she kept her gaze forward. "I'm not asking you to forgive me today," he continued, "or tomorrow. I just want the chance to prove that I'm not the man who lied to you. I'm the man who couldn't believe he was lucky enough to meet you." She finally turned to face him. "I loved who you were with me, not because of what you gave, but because of how you listened. How you looked at me like I was the only honest thing you'd ever seen. I still see you that way." Her fingers brushed the edge of the canvas beside them. "Then show me what it looks like to be loved by a man who's finally being honest with himself." He stepped closer, his voice low and vulnerable. "Come see the house." She hesitated. "Why?" "Because I built a studio on the top floor. With real light and paint-stained floors and windows that face the river. I didn't build it for me." She looked up at him, her eyes unreadable. "If I walk through that door, I'm not stepping into your world. We're building something new. Together." He nodded, voice thick. "I wouldn't want it any other way." The sound of the rain softened as they walked toward the exit. He held the door open, not out of habit, but reverence. Outside, the city moved around them, unbothered. He offered her his hand. She took it without hesitation. The brownstone was nestled on a quiet street lined with trees just beginning to bloom. Not flashy, not loud, just home. Inside, the space was warm and lived in. Unfinished canvases leaned against the walls. Books were stacked on the floor. A kettle whistled softly from the kitchen. He led her upstairs. The studio had no doors, just a wide archway and a flood of natural light pouring in from oversized windows. A long table sat under a skylight, littered with brushes and palettes. A single stool waited in the center, facing a blank canvas. She walked in slowly, taking it all in. Then she turned to him. "You didn't paint today," she said. "I was waiting." She stepped toward the canvas, fingers brushing over the wood frame. "What happens if I pick up the brush again?" He moved behind her, close but not touching. "Then we start something new. You and me. No edits. No masks. Just color and truth." She reached for a brush, dipped it in cobalt blue, and made the first stroke. He exhaled. Not relief, gratitude. She turned to him, eyes shining. "Start over with me." He nodded, stepping into the light. Always. They painted into the evening. No words. No expectations, just the sound of brushes on canvas. Wind through the open window, and the quiet, steady rhythm of hearts finally beating in sync. And for the first time in either of their lives, love didn't feel like a performance. Felt like home. The gallery sat quiet now, closed for the evening. The lights dimmed to a soft glow that spilled across the polished floors. Lena stood in the center, barefoot on the warm wood, brush in hand, putting the final touches on the collaborative piece she and Graham had started weeks ago. The canvas, a chaotic weave of deep emeralds and golds with bold, unapologetic streaks of crimson, stood taller than either of them. It didn't follow any rules of composition. It didn't need to. Behind her, Graham adjusted one of the overhead lights and stepped back to admire the piece. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his elbows, his fingertips stained with dried paint that had been there since morning. "You missed a spot," he said, pointing to the top left corner. She twisted around, raising a brow. "You're tall. You fix it." "I'd rather see you on your toes," he replied, stepping behind her and gently lifting her by the waist. She gave a startled laugh as he hoisted her up just enough to reach the top of the canvas. Her brush swept across the edge, leaving a small curve of cobalt that completed the arc they'd started days ago. He set her down carefully but didn't let go. "You do realize this is the first time I've ever finished a painting with someone else," she said, turning in his arms. "You trusted me with your process. I trusted you with more than that." His eyes softened. "And I never take that for granted." She rested her hands against his chest, feeling the steady beat beneath her palms. "I still have days where I wake up and think this can't be real, that I'll walk outside and get hit with the reality that this was all some beautiful illusion." He reached up, brushing a curl behind her ear with infinite care. "Then I'll spend every day reminding you it's not." She studied him for a long moment. "You know, I don't think I ever asked what your parents were like." He exhaled slowly. "That's because I never told you." She waited. "My father was a machine. He built things, empires, profits, but never relationships. My mother was kind but distant. She left when I was 15. I think she got tired of being a trophy in a house full of glass." Her grip on his shirt tightened. "I used to think love was negotiation. Trade affection for stability, attention for loyalty. Then you walked in with paint under your nails and no filter, and suddenly I wanted to unlearn everything. Lena looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. Have you? Not yet, he admitted. But I'm not afraid of the work anymore. She smiled, a real one, the kind that started in her eyes. Good. Because I'm not easy. I don't want easy, he said. I want you. Rain began to patter again against the windows, the sound soft and rhythmic. Graham reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He didn't open it. He just offered it to her. I didn't buy this to fix anything. I bought it because I knew after all of it I don't want a life that doesn't include you. Lena stared at the box, then up at him, her voice low and steady. I'm not saying yes because of the ring. I'm saying yes because I believe in what we're building. He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold band. Understated, elegant, with a single rough-cut diamond set off center. No perfection, he said. Just truth. She held out her hand. Then let's get messy. He slid the ring on her finger, and for a long moment, neither of them moved. Then she pulled him down into a kiss that held no hesitation. No fear, only certainty. Weeks later, the wedding was held in the studio upstairs, surrounded by their closest friends and the children from Lena's class who had insisted on painting decorations themselves. Angela stood beside Lena, beaming with pride, and Marvin, the driver who had once silently ferried Graham through a life of isolation, now stood near the window, holding a flute of champagne and watching the man he once chauffeured become someone entirely new. They didn't write vows. They didn't need to. Instead, Graham took Lena's hand and said, I choose you. Every version of you. The chaos, the color, the stubbornness, the brilliance. And she answered, I choose the man who let go of everything just to hold on to what matters. I choose the life we're going to make, not the one we had. There were no orchestras, no fireworks, no 5-tier cakes. Just a rooftop at sunset, laughter in the background, and the sound of two hearts finally, fully at peace. Months passed. The brownstone filled with canvases and half-finished sketches. Lena's students came by once a month for free art sessions, and Graham, wearing paint-streaked clothes and a constant look of wonder, helped clean brushes and refill palettes. He started mentoring young entrepreneurs, teaching them how to build without losing their souls in the process. Lena illustrated a children's book one of her students wrote, and Graham published it under a new label they co-founded, Braver Press. They didn't chase happily ever after. They built it. One brushstroke, one truth, one messy, beautiful day at a time.